What is up YouTube? This is Alex aka Foreign. In some of my previous videos I've talked a lot about how to choose graphics cards and comparing different brands between each other. This time I'm taking a slightly different approach. Previously I've used existing reviews of the cards which measured temperatures and noise, but this time there won't be any of that. I'll be talking about many more graphics cards and coolers themselves though. This time we'll check out 33 GTX 1080s, basically 90% of what's available on the market right now. I won't be looking into blower style coolers and Founders Editions aka reference cards though. All of those perform the same, and it's worth to buy one only if you are using a small case with limited airflow, going for SLI, or want to water cool the card later. Water cooling the cheapest graphics card would be the smartest decision because in the end it will perform more or less close to the much more expensive ones. But now let's talk about the topic. What I decided to do this time is just give you guys the Excel sheet here with the core and boost clocks out of the box, so no OC mode clocks included. Memory clocks, pricing, RGB or LED availability, power delivery, power phase design, and the number of fans on the cooler. No reviews this time because it's quite difficult to compare different graphics cards like that due to the ambient temperatures, case airflow and whatnot, and in the end a custom fan curve will fix all possible heat issues, especially in higher tier non-blower cards like these. I'll talk about setting up a custom fan curve in an upcoming video, so stay tuned if you're interested. This time we will look at GTX 1080s from EVGA, Asus, ZOTAC, Geforce, Galax, Gigabyte, MSI, Inno3D and Palette, with a total of 33 cards. Here's the Excel sheet I made with all the info you may need to choose a card that best suits your needs. Now in terms of pricing, I mostly use the available pricing in the United States, but for some cards only British or European pricing was available, so sorry for that. In the long run, if you're choosing from any of these cards, you'll know their hierarchy from this table anyway. Now let's talk a bit about the coolers on all of these cards. The EVGA cards are often mentioned as Nvidia's best add-in board partner, but the fact is that even though they make very good coolers, out of the box they are usually very hot. Setting up a custom fan curve will fix all possible heat problems though. EVGA has great support in the US, but I can't confirm that because I live pretty far away. Now the gaming and gaming superclocked cards are reference PCB designs, which means they have one 8-pin power connector and a 5+1 phase design, just like in the Founders Edition aka reference card. In the long run though, that won't matter as much because the silicon lottery determines your overclocking potential the most. But in terms of for the win, and especially the classified cards, it's good to have that extra power and power phases for more power and cleaner voltage delivery. Keep in mind that out of the box the EVGA cards get pretty hot, but that is easily fixable by setting up a custom fan curve. The ROG Strix cards from Asus use the same coolers on all their cards, with the same PCB. They stand in pretty high regard, have average temperatures out of the box, and average power phase design. The best part of these cards is the thin triple fan cooler design, which means that a proper fan curve can keep the video card both quiet and cool. ZOTAC has two different cards with two different coolers, but the same PCB. That means that it's essentially the same two cards, but the Amp Extreme one has a huge 1.4 kilogram cooler on it that is regarded as one of the biggest coolers on the market right now. That allows for some amazing cooling capabilities even out of the box. Hard to imagine what would be possible with a custom fan curve. Keep in mind that this card is extremely large, weighing 1.4 kilograms and needing 3 slots in your case. Make sure you're able to support this card if you plan on buying it. Regarding the regular Amp Edition card, it's your regular 2-fan cooler with decent cooling potential under a custom fan curve. Geforce cards are pretty hard to find, so I had to use European pricing on these guys. Again, they're the same custom PCB and dual fan cooler on all 3 cards, only the more expensive ones are pre-overclocked higher. Now, Galax cards stand in quite high regard as well, especially the Hall of Fame card, which in my opinion is the sexiest GTX 1080 I've seen, with a fully white design. It has a 12+3 power phase design, which may allow for better overclocking potential, but again, The most important factor in overclocking is the GPU or graphics processing unit itself. The power delivery and power phase design may allow for a more stable overclock or cleaner voltage delivery only if the graphics processor itself is a viable one. Depending on the pricing of this card, it may be a great option if it is cheaper than the flagship cards of the competition. Unfortunately, I haven't found any availability options for the Hall of Fame GTX 1080. The Gigabyte cards are known to run very cool out of the box, even the lower tier ones. That is because Gigabyte puts temperature first and noise second, whereas most other AIB partners do the opposite. Gigabyte cards are also priced very competitively, with their flagship non-water-cooled version costing only $700 USD, whereas all other flagship cards from other manufacturers are around the $750 mark. The Extreme Gaming cards also boast a 12+2 power phase design and 8+8 pin power delivery. This cooler is also something new, with overlapping fans allowing, according to Gigabyte, for much higher airflow. A tiny fourth fan adds even more improved airflow. I really like innovation in cooler design, and Gigabyte is doing just that. The card is also pretty large, taking up close to 3 slots. If you don't know which card to choose and want the cards running at mid-60s while under load even out of the box, then Gigabyte is a very good choice, even the cheaper cards. MSI has a lot of cards this time around, boasting 8 cards, but only 1 custom PCB for the air-cooled ones. The Armor and all gaming cards have a dual fan cooler design with pretty big fans that allow for massive airflow. A custom fan curve is still needed to keep the cards under 70°C though. Those cards are pretty okay for the price, maybe a bit overpriced, but MSI's water-cooled Seahawk cards are pretty interesting. For the same price of a flagship gaming Z, you can get a water-cooled all-in-one card on a reference PCB, which is very appealing in my opinion. If you're looking for a GTX 1080 in the $750 range, then the Seahawk may be a great choice. Inno3D has multiple cards, but here we look at the most prominent ones. A cheaper dual-fan Twin X2 on a reference PCB and the iChill series on a custom PCB, the X3 and X4. The X3 is a neat-looking triple-fan cooler with some interesting design choices for improved airflow, but the X4 is what seems most interesting. The card has an extra 50mm fan, allowing for extra cold air to enter from the top and adding extra cooling to the whole PCB. Very interesting design choice. It is most likely that this card can be extremely cool and quiet, especially with a custom fan curve. And last but not least, the palette cards. Typical dual fan graphics cards with custom PCBs. The Game Rock series boasts an 8+2 power phase design, which is slightly better than on the Jetstream cards. Again, that won't guarantee a better overclocking experience, as the graphics processor quality is much more important, but it's nice to have that extra layer of quality. A custom fan curve is most likely needed to sustain temperatures below 70°C. This video turned out a bit longer than I anticipated, but I guess it's for the best. Analyzing 33 GTX 1080s is not a simple feat. To sum everything up, I would say that I simply gave you the information to work with when choosing a card. Don't look at the pre-overclocks on any cards, because they will overclock higher anyway. 2000 MHz is usually achievable on all cards. A 3-fan cooler card will most often offer better cooling but get louder when under load. If you don't plan on overclocking, then get the cheapest GTX 1080 you can find, but if you want to OC, then a card with a higher tier cooler, not a higher tier card by itself, and better power phase design and delivery is recommended, but that won't guarantee better overclocking by itself. This means that I would suggest avoiding higher tier cards using the same cooler from the lower tier cards. If you have any questions, comments, or anything to say at all, then be free to leave a comment below. In the near future, I'll be releasing a video on how to do custom fan curves and basic overclocking, so stay tuned. I thank you for your attention and hope to see you later.